Welcome everyone to this breaking news update. Of course, new security vulnerabilities edition as per every other day. Today, of course, Intel speculative behavior because recurring theme. No shit, Sherlock edition. And yeah, so what is new just out, I think today, which is probably why we need to alert here all the administrators and developers. So yeah, new speculative bypass here. And what is KP? So bypassing KPTI using speculative behavior of SWAPGS, SWAPGS instruction. And so what is what? SWAPGS is loading the GS register on x86, all the obscure instructions and mechanisms. And KPTI, right? KPTI. Yeah. So that is a kernel page table isolation. I think this probably most likely was introduced with mitigations for previously known as Kaiser. Yeah, exactly right there. Linux kernel feature that mitigates the meltdown security vulnerability affecting many Intel x86 CPUs and improves kernel hardening against attempts to bypass kernel address space layout randomization. So yeah, exactly what was introduced for the most part exactly for this previous security vulnerabilities can now be bypassed again with SWAPGS instructions. So yeah, basically as we have this recurring, we have already from all the IT news here already 10-20 times. Probably, well, at least basically each IT news summary and whatnot is security vulnerability horror show edition. And so their researchers here, Dan Horia Lutus and Andrei Vlad Lutus, so recently uncovered a new speculative execution vulnerability and demonstrated how it can be exploited via the side channel style attack dubbed SWAPGS attack. Vulnerability has been publicly reported today as CVE 2019-1125. And yeah, while they are nothing new and attacks have known to be for some time now, speculative execution-based attacks are now sign indicates that linger on for some time. So yeah, exactly what I wanted to say is, yeah, this will of course not be the last one. They will, of all the obscure x86 instructions, basically they are looking everywhere. And you wonder that Intel is not finding them all by themselves, and independent security researchers constantly come out with new updates. But maybe Intel intentionally doesn't take much of a look there because they would maybe just find too many issues, or they already know all the issues and just hope that nobody else finds them. I don't know. But I heard from researchers when the first Spectre and Meltdown came out, when was it, also over a year already, I heard from or read from some people on Twitter and such that they said Intel has been warned. So it was like basically researchers said this are exactly this kind of speculative attacks that independent researchers have warned already for many years, 3-4 years or something, allegedly, according to this Twitter tweets. So yeah, also yeah, so much Intel was cheating in the previous years. I really wonder that there's still Intel fanboys when you read or watch all the other gaming YouTube channels, that people still are in love with their Intel CPUs after all the 10 times of some performance impact. By the way, I think I saw on Phoronix already some measurements for that initial Spectre SWAPGS impact, and of course this is again some percent slower, although I think I saw somewhere that this is mostly exploitable on Windows, maybe, but yeah, so of course pre-SWAPGS mitigation and after, so of course some, however, percent probably summarizes it 5%. Just so 5% there, 5% there, 5% there, 10% there. After a little while, it adds up a little bit excessively, in my opinion. Of course, the very latest Linux kernel, I've already seen this here, 5.2.7 and such, are already out with exactly this here, x86 speculation, SWAPGS, exclude Atom from, oh, speculation, okay, at least Atom CPUs are not infected. Well done. No speculation, no vulnerability, yeah. So there you have it. Updates and such coming next to you. Speaking about updates, apparently the latest update of Marvell Semiconductor network update Wi-Fi driver breaks 5G connectivity. You would really think those vendors on the commercial binary-only side would have had their act together, and only such unprofessional bugs like this happen on our side in small little companies where people make mistakes every other day. But no, apparently the big vendors also break their drivers. Not this, of course, affecting, I think, Surface devices, maybe newer ones like this, but maybe this or others. And of course, recurring theme. So this, I think this is Microsoft Community Surface book, first gen i5 with DGPU something. But recurring theme, I'm also affected. I'm also still extremely pissed that my Surface piece of garbage old shit here has this stupid phantom touch that Microsoft never addressed. So I have here a paper white that where the touchscreen is not that much usable anymore. So yeah, also to that yeah, Surface support, not only my phantom touch and dead zones, but also here this, unfortunately. And yeah, so this is really sad that, I mean, well, again, right, open source side of Linux stuff, there is a horde of open source people doing it in, well, okay, also not only, right, the cliche of open source university and sitting here in some small office. Of course, people also work from IBM, SUSE, Red Hat, Oracle, Microsoft, and Canonical, and of course, in the meantime, Microsoft. And many of these drivers, by the way, fun fact, the Marvell driver for this piece of garbage here is also written, I think, probably from them directly. And you do not always get the best support, right? So another issue of this stupid machine here, by the way, I can't recommend, not a paid advertisement, don't buy this crap. Not only phantom touch and dead zones and such, but Wi-Fi is also annoying on Linux. It works, so far so good. I think it's written from Marvell or something officially, but often these official drivers are not the best, right? I have experienced many of these community drivers are often much better quality and maintained. The problem here, it loads some firmware, and in my opinion, these firmware blobs are really usually annoying, like because when there's a bug inside there, you can't do anything. And that's exactly the case with this thing, right? It works until there is some time, some idle time, and then the firmware goes into some auto suspend mode, power saving mode, and then the Wi-Fi stops working and you need to reboot, which of course, not even if config down and up helps, or RM modding and reloading the kernel module, that also doesn't help. I tried this, other people have tried this. And then, so this is still not fixed, right? There is a kernel bug. I reported this because I can't debug this firmware blob. There you see NVIDIA, why you don't want firmware blobs, right? And then you're on the mercy of the vendor, just with other binary-only blobs, which is why you normally don't want binary large objects. And this bug, as far as I know, is still not fixed over probably 3 years. And I wrote, say, hey, hello, here I have this stupid bug. And someone replied, I think someone from the community, of course not from Marvell, of course they give a shit about their customers. So someone else who is using a Surface, maybe from Fedora, Red Hat or something of that sort, replied and say, yeah, by the way, I have the same issue. I think it's a firmware set. Yeah, okay, I've figured so far myself. And he wrote then, by the way, if you disable TX power auto suspend something with IW configs, then it doesn't auto suspend in idle, and then it works. So yeah, that works. So since then I boot with boot script, IW power, TX power something, no auto suspend. But yeah, amazing vendor support, of course not. And now they broke the Windows driver as well, because certainly don't want to have working Wi-Fi. Speaking about stuff, apparently probably should have practiced pronouncing that before I started the live stream. Overturn a 100-year-old assumption of how brain cell works. I find this quite noteworthy also in terms of our artificial intelligence here. In my opinion, of course, so artificial intelligence often modeled after this neural networks here, and apparently the right here summary, human brains contain a little over 80 odd billion neurons, each joining with other cells to create trillions of connected called synapses. The numbers are mind-boggling, but the way each individual nerve cell contributes to the brain's function is still an area of contention. In fact, a study published in 2017 has overturned a 100-year-old assumption on what exactly makes neurons fire, posing a new mechanics behind certain neurological disorders. And I find this also newsworthy, noteworthy in terms here of artificial intelligence. Of course, we model neural networks just after the way this neurons and synapses are connected, and so basically you build relatively large networks, which by the way I could also have, where does it open? Yeah, of course it opens at the end. And if we Google here neural networks, we certainly find some images of that, and zero-drop frames for some amazing thing, as much as YouTube live streaming beta doesn't work, at least today. Wait a second, why do images not load? Yeah, so like that, just of course the larger the better, or at least the larger the more intelligent this stuff can be. I'm personally a little bit skeptical, because this also means if self-driving cars, I mean this classifier kind of stuff can do a lot of stuff. So basically you have inputs, whatever that might be, pixels of a camera, of all kind of other input, handwriting strokes, photographs, whatever. And usually, of course, the more intelligent, the larger and deeper and multi-layer and stuff these networks are. And I never found this too intelligent, right? So this means you see this is a very simple structure, and I always wondered, of course, we on our side with OCR and stuff, we have played, of course, not large scale as Google, because we certainly don't have billions yet, but working on this on the small scale. And I always find, of course, you have some inputs, you have all this weights there of your synapses, and they multiply and switch the input and propagate it through the network. And given on some input, of course, then if you have some pixels, dark or bright, the thumb through the network then eventually gets some output and says this is an A or an B, or this is a cat or a dog, or whatever your classification training model might be. And I always found this, well, of course, the large networks, you have there quite some million values to classify and multiply and stuff. But I never found this particularly intelligent. If you would think you rely on you give your life in the hands of this kind of statistical model in a self-driving car with some millions or billions kind of this, well, maybe not billions, but anyway, this connection. So you have some camera inputs, input data or whatever, and your car is driving based on this huge stack of numbers. It's a little bit, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, if this also explains why the Tesla sometimes allegedly drove into something like a concrete road separation thing there, or a truck, because first of all, yeah, by the way, while we talk about this, I think there was something on Ars Technica today, because then if your camera doesn't see something, if it's totally bright, then of course your neural networks doesn't see that there is a truck if it's just, if the camera is oversaturated, and which we, by the way, can simulate here live, like this, right? And then eventually, obviously, kinda you get the idea if there is direct sunshine, and then your neural network only says, yeah, this looks pretty white, probably nothing much to see, and then there was a truck. Not really the greatest fan of that. And also here's Elon Musk. Today, anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed, experts maybe not. And I always wondered that if I would build a self-driving car, I would not really want to rely solely on visual camera input, because, as I said, direct sunshine, snow, rain, and if there is a huge hole or a river and the camera doesn't see this, I would much rather have some distance kind of scanned environment scan and know that there is a hole or there is a concrete barrier than a camera that is dirty or has direct sunshine or snow and rain and such, and light reflections, and not really sure. Maybe this is a pure cost down decision, right, Elon Musk, that he just says, yeah, it's just too expensive, we just don't, this marketing hype, like, yeah, you don't need this, or it's crap or whatever, when in reality it's just like, yeah, cost down, we don't want to put their expensive devices in there, we need to just get this working with cameras. Although in my opinion, from here right now, unless we get totally magic cameras that can look through snow and ice and rain and have much higher dynamic range for not being blended as much with sunshine. But anyway, long story short, in any case, this is artificial intelligence. In this kind of scenario, you rely on this millions of numbers multiplying and accumulating through your trained network to give some output and maybe steer left or right, so something of that sort. Basic summary, so not really sure if that is the most amazing. In more amazing news, Toshiba introduced a new tiny NVMe SSD form factor. The previous SSDs, portable ones, obviously are of course still SD, which are of course not that high performance, of course got higher performance, but of course not desktop server grade level of performance, and it looks like a little bit, so this looks to me like a similar form factor, 18 by 14 by 1.4 millimeter, XFME or XFM Express card size, so naming a little bit XFM Express, I don't know, the name is strange. I have the feeling no marketing genius was sitting in this meeting, but yeah, so high performance, small form factor SSD stuff is coming from Toshiba. They're not really sure how soon this will come to the market, but maybe it's useful for some of you. In more amazing no shit Sherlock news, German, which I translate here, compression antivirus programs have problems with the zip bombs. The zip bombs are of course specially constructed zips that expand to tera or petabyte of storage, mostly with zeros, just so yeah, some just zeros multiplied many times, like zipped and zipped and zipped again with just some zero repeated billion times, and multiplying this from. And also the new ones are overlaid, so initially this was just some like run lengths encoded billions of zeros and zero. I think the new ones even have improved this compression of zeros further by like kind of illegally, creatively overlapping those header segments of the compression algorithm structure there, so that it's like interleaving those and reusing fields that otherwise maybe should not have been laid out like this. I think I read somewhere. Anyway, so yeah, no shit Sherlock. I think was this not the intention, the original intention of this, but yeah, somehow they found it newsworthy. And what I wanted to point out specifically here is, so not only do many of them have problems, yeah, like 281 terabyte of something, a 10 megabyte file which extracts to 281 terabyte. And yeah, no surprise that this is a problem. Also, more newsworthy is that some of those vendors, there you see how much snake oil this antivirus stuff is, some have simply blacklisted the hash of this file. So if you, so like, where is this? Wenn man, yeah, so the original file is recognized by 19 of those antivirus snake oil programs. However, if you just change this a little bit, just some bytes or bits or something, that it's not the same hash anymore, then they then from 19 only 7 still recognize it. This is of course, yes, there you see antivirus just some hash of some file. Instead they implement some reprotection, like they try to extract this, and this mostly extracts to garbled nonsense. Amazing engineering, just blacklist the hash, stupid. But also newsworthy because Google makes so much fuss about they have the most amazing engineers and security team and such with Project Zero and so on, that even the Chrome browser does crash here or something, or becomes very slow and whatnot, because so the Chrome browser simply added so much to the amazing security of Google, right? Instead of having a similar detection of, yeah, this extracts to zeros, or this to not much useful content, or just becomes too large, you know, normally you would think if it becomes too large, it would just, no matter if it's just zeros or whatsoever, have some warning like, hello, this file becomes too large to detect and something anyway. But yeah, not in 2019. And so the Chrome browser of the amazing security team of Google, they simply have blacklisted the URL and the safe browsing URL stuff. So if you download the same file on another site, it still explodes the Chrome browser. So yeah, thumbs up for that amazing engineering achievement. In similar news, at least in Germany, the advertised mobile speeds of cellular networks are usually much lower than advertised. So yeah, no shit Sherlock, as if we did not know this already. Also, the speed, this is a shared medium, right? What many people don't know, they always think they get so many gigabits, or is it gigabits, megabits, gigabits. Anyways, they get so much speed there from their 4G LTE stuff, and this is shared on those cell, right? So if 10 or 100 people in this cell download something, they only get then the shared part of this medium, right? Which probably I think many people didn't realize yet. And yeah, of course, in the rest of the world, it's usually faster than in Germany because it's overpriced garbage. And to compare this in South Korea or Norwegian, they have 70 or 65 Mbit. And here it was in average 30 Mbit, which of course 30 Mbit is still relatively fast. But again, shared medium also with 5G, this will, of course, this amazing speeds shared in this cell. So I'm not really sure how amazing this really will be. Also not really sure if we, anyway, if you need such speed up road, but whatever. And last but not least, to trigger some global warming deniers. Of course, this is paywalled, so we can only read the headline, which is the July hottest month of ever recorded history. And because this is paywalled, I would shout out here New York Times, but apparently they need a paywall. So if you go to alternative news sites like this or whatsoever, then you get a similar summary of the state of our planet Earth, in case you wondered if it really was so warm, or if you just imagined that it really was so warm. Certainly here in Central Europe, you name it. With this was a quick emergency update, especially in regards to not only, wait a second, why is this such a huge advertisement there? Anyway, this is even new deals, daily edit. Anyway, of course, emergency Intel security vulnerabilities, because why not, apparently. I hope you learned something and enjoyed this quick news summary. Don't forget to update your Windows, Linux, maybe Mac OS, but probably not, I don't know. And hope to see you soon for the next videos and updates coming, probably even later with some 3D programming. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. And don't forget to code some more amazing code every day.